or Rommel, who's going to be here shortly. It's our first program for 2023 as we continue our fire talk with the team from the St. Kitts and Nevis Fire and Rescue Services here in the Federation. Good morning to you, Timothy, and welcome.
Good morning, JQ. It's a pleasure to be back here in the studio.
Great. Now let's get right into your greetings before you get into your shout-outs. I know you got your fans, the people look forward to it, wish them Happy New Year, whatever you want to say to them now.
I wouldn't say fans, but but I just want to say, greetings to everyone, the general public. It's another year for us here at ZIZ, doing public information, disseminating public information, and we want to, extend a heartfelt, extend to the general public, be safe throughout the year, and tune into the shows to get some ideas, some tips as to how you could be safe.
Great. So our conversation this morning is a kind of a review of 2022.
2022. Looking at the overall statistics of 2022 for the fire services.
All right. So let's get right into our conversation.
All right. So we could maybe take some numbers from each stations first, and then we could actually go into the overall numbers. Mm-hmm. Now, for the Bastille Fire Station, we broken up the different emergency calls into certain sections. So we had structural fires, wildland fires, and the wildland fires would include like grass, bush, etc. Motor vehicle accidents, motor vehicle fires, and then we have false calls, and then a group that puts any other calls inside of that section. Miscellaneous, as you put it. So for the month or the year, for structural fires, the peak month that we had was in January. We had 4 structural fires in January, and for like the months of October and November we had 3, and then the numbers lessen accordingly. For wildland fires, our peak for Bastille was actually in June. In June we had 34 calls pertaining to grass or bush fires. We did not have any motor vehicle accident. We did not respond to any motor vehicle accident calls. Then for the motor vehicle fires, for May and June, those topped the months with two calls each for motor vehicle fires. For false calls, we had the most we had within a month was 5, and this was for June and also in September. Mm-hmm. So the total amount of structural fires for the year amounted to 24 for Bastille, which is 9%. Wildland fires was 117, which amounted to 45% of the calls. For motor vehicle fires, we had 9 for the year, which amounted to 3%, and the false calls was 31 for the year, and that to me is too much. Mm-hmm. That number is too high in regards to false calls. That amounted to 12%, and then the miscellaneous fires, which would include fires like lamppost fire and other type of fires, we had that on at 79, which would equal to 30%. Right? For Tabernacle, structural fires was 7 in total, which amounts to 6%. The wildland fires was 65, which amounted to 60%. They had 2 motor vehicle fires for the year, They had also for false cars just 3. That number is significantly low at 3%. And then the other miscellaneous fires was 31, which amounted to 29%. For the Sandy Point Station, structural fires, 12 for the year, 9%. For the wildland fires, you had 98 wildland fires, 71%. Then the motor vehicle fires, they didn't have any motor vehicle accident calls. For the motor vehicle fires, we had 4 in total for the year, which amounted to 3%. The false cars, 6 for the year. That number is low as well in comparison to last year. So that amounted to 4%. The other calls was 18 in total for the year, which gave it 13%. Over in Charlestown now, we had for the structural fires 14 calls for the year, and that amounted to 29%. Then for the wildland fires, we had 5. Numbers are lower for the bush fires over in Charlestown. That amounted to 11%. For the motor vehicle accident, they had 5. All right, they responded to 5 calls. 2 in June, 1 in July, 1 in November, and 1 in December. And that was a total of 11%. For the motor vehicle fires, there were 5 calls, amounting to 10%. False cars was just 4, so that number is significantly low as well, which amounted to 8%. And the other miscellaneous type fires, 15 cars, which would give them 31%. Now from the airport side, they did not respond to any calls over at Van Samry. And the classifications for the airport, we broken down to calls regarding fuel spills or standbys. Standby is when a aircraft might be in distress and they have to roll out just in the event of that. So there were no calls at all for the Van Samry airport. For the RLB airport, the Robert Llewellyn Bradshaw airport, they had 4 calls for fuel spills, and they did not have any standby calls at all. All right. Now going into the St. Kitts division, Nevis division, and then the overall. All right. So for structural fires in St. Kitts, all combined stations, we had 43 calls, and that amounted to 8%. Wildland fires was 280, and that amounted to 35%. There were motor vehicle fires, 15, 3%. The fuel spills was 4, which is 1%. The standbys, none. The false cars, 40 cars with 8%. The other fires, 128 calls, which amounted to 25%. From the Nevis end now, the Nevis structural fires was just 14, 29%. The wildland fires were 5, which is 11%. The motor vehicle accidents, 5, 11%. The motor vehicle fires was 5, 10%. The fuel spill 0, standby 0. The false cars was 4, which 8%. And the other cars were 15 cars, making it a total of 31% for that section. Now the overall total, all right, for both St. Kitts and Nevis, the structural fires were 57 cars in total, 10%. The wildland fires, 285 cars, 51%. The motor vehicle accidents, 5 cars, which makes up 1%. Motor vehicle fires, 20 calls, 3%. Fuel spills, 4 calls, 1%, sorry. There were no standby calls. And false calls, 44, making it 8%. And the other fires amounted to 143, which makes up 26%. Another category I want to touch on is fire prevention. The categories that we broke up the fire prevention initiative are the inspections, fire prevention presentations, the fire extinguisher presentations, the fire drills, and public information sharing. All right. So, for the inspections for the year, we did 31 inspections. For fire prevention presentations, we did 37. For fire extinguisher presentations, we did 31. For fire drills, we did 23. And for public information sharing, we did a total of 51 sessions. So these are just some of the numbers that are coming out from the fire and rescue services for the year 2022.
Thank you for sharing the information, Timothy. Let's say good morning to my boy Rommel, and Happy New Year to you, and welcome to the studio.
Yes, good morning, GK. Happy New Year to you as well, and everybody listening. I hope you had a nice and quiet festive season. And for us at the fire department, I could say that we had a relatively quiet season. Yeah, especially as it relates to the structural fires. I believe persons are more aware and they're more conscious, so they are taking more precautions, which contributes to that drop. We didn't have anything significant in December, neither structural nor motor vehicle accidents. We had accidents, but nothing that we needed to respond to cut persons out and so forth. So that indeed was a good December for us. Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, it's going to be a short one this while. I want to thank you guys for passing through and sharing the information and keeping the public up to date with what's going on in terms of from the public need to know end as it relates to what the fire department is doing here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. You keep making mention of the false calls. Maybe we should start a drive, maybe a program once every week or every other week to bring some awareness to why people shouldn't be making false calls.
Right.
As you indicated, the number was too high. So maybe that's something we can look at in addressing in 2023.
Of course.
Gentlemen, thank you for being here this morning. I know it's a short one this morning. You just popped in, but thanks for gracing us with your presence. and Timothy, we're going to give you the last words as usual.
Well, what we wanted to highlight as well, I don't know if Mr. Williams want to touch on that.
Yeah, well, it's just to highlight 3 of the more significant fires that we would have had. And just so persons understand that fires like these, there's a lot of things that we have to take into consideration. Now, these 3 fires are one, the school fire at I think it's Joshua Obadiah, that's the school over at Molyneux. And there was a fire over at Christophe Harbour that took us almost an entire day to extinguish. And there was that fire over at Ramsbury. I think there were 2 fatalities. So those are 3 of the the fires that would have really used quite a bit of our resources at the fire department, where we had to pull basically trucks from all districts, even from the airport, and so leaving those districts open and kind of vulnerable. And so these are some of the decisions that we have to take. And so we encourage persons to continue to be fire conscious, take all the necessary precautions you need to take to secure your property, because when things like this happen, it takes a toll on not just the fire services, it takes a toll on the water services, because we have to use a lot of water to extinguish these type of fires. So if we take precautions to prevent, then we're not just preventing fire. We're preventing fire, we're preventing excess water usage, we're preventing having to use additional resources, wear and tear on the vehicle, wear and tear on your human resources. I mean, it's a lot of things that we are preserving once we do our best to prevent this kind of catastrophes. Yes.
All right, but something to add to our conversation in 2023 as well, indeed, going forward.
Sure.
So we have a number of things to look at and make aware. Well, bring some awareness to the public.
Mm-hmm.
Gentlemen, thank you once again. And thank you, whoever you are, for listening and viewing this morning. And we'll be back next week, same time, same place.
All right.
Stay tuned. We got more for you coming up next, right here on The Morning Show.
This message brought to you by ZIZ and the Fire Department of St. Kitts and Nevis.
I am Woman Fire Officer Louise Clark from the St. Kitts Nevis Fire and Rescue Services with your safety tip for today. Keep items that can catch on fire at least 3 feet away from anything that gets hot, such as space heaters. Smoking materials can cause residential fire death. If you smoke, take precautions. Smoke outside, choose fire-safe cigarettes, never smoke in bed, when drowsy or medicated, or if anyone in the home is using oxygen.
This message was brought to you by ZIZ and the St. Kitts Nevis Fire Department.
It's time that we realize that we must work together to
The world as
thrive.
we know it, the sky and below it. Could I never have more wonder, yeah, with life and all